The recognition. The morning sun cast long shadows through the windows of Murphy's diner, illuminating dust motes that danced lazily in the air. Richard Blackwood sat hunched over his coffee, weathered hands wrapped around the ceramic mug like it was an anchor to reality. At 73, he'd earned every line etched into his face and every gray hair on his head. His brown leather jacket, worn at the elbows and frayed at the collar, had seen better decades, much like its owner. Most patrons barely glanced at the elderly man nursing his second cup of coffee. He preferred it that way. Anonymous. Forgettable. Just another retiree killing time in a roadside diner. His pension card identified him only as R.B. Not Colonel Richard Butterfly Blackwood, hero of the Earth-Proxima War. That man had died 15 years ago in a flurry of classified debriefings and forced retirement. The only reminder of his past was the small, faded butterfly tattoo peeking out from beneath his left sleeve. Most people assumed it was just an old man's moment of youthful rebellion. They had no idea it had once been a symbol of hope in the darkest corners of 3-star systems. More coffee, sir. Blackwood looked up to see their server approaching, one of the new alien immigrants who'd arrived after the Reconciliation Accord. The being stood about 6 feet tall, with the distinctive green-tinted skin and large, dark eyes of the Zephyrian species. Their movements had that characteristic mechanical precision that came from wearing an environmental suit, necessary for their physiology in Earth's atmosphere. Sure, Blackwood grunted, pushing his cup forward. The alien, whose name tag read Zara, began pouring, but suddenly froze mid-motion. The coffee pot tilted dangerously as those enormous black eyes focused on Blackwood's exposed tattoo. For a moment that stretched into eternity, neither moved. You. The alien's voice carried that distinctive metallic undertone that translation implants never quite eliminated. You are the butterfly. Blackwood's hand instinctively moved toward his jacket, where no weapon had rested for 15 years. Old habits died hard. Easy there, friend. I think you've got me confused with someone else. But even as he spoke, recognition dawned in those alien eyes, and with it, a flood of memories Blackwood had spent years trying to forget. Mud. Rain. The screaming of twisted metal and dying soldiers. And a small alien child trapped beneath the wreckage of a transport, terrified and alone. The Battle of Sigma Hydri, the alien whispered. You pulled me from the wreckage. The diner seemed to fade away as 23 years collapsed into nothing. Blackwood stared at the being before him, seeing past the environmental suit to the frightened hatchling he'd once saved. You were just a kid. I drew the butterfly on your shell so the medics would know you were under protection. Unit designation ZX-977, the alien confirmed, though their voice was softer now. You saved my life that day, Colonel Blackwood. I have been searching for you for 7 years. The weight of his old rank hung heavy in the air. Nobody had called him that in over a decade. That man's dead, Blackwood said quietly. Has been for a long time. Perhaps, Zara replied, but I am afraid his past has found him anyway. The warning. The coffee had grown cold between them, but neither Blackwood nor Zara seemed to notice. The diner buzzed with its usual morning crowd, truckers, commuters, and the occasional off-world traveler, all oblivious to the reunion unfolding at the counter. Why are you here? Blackwood finally asked, his soldier's instinct screaming that this was no coincidence. Zara glanced around the diner, then leaned closer. I came to warn you. The Butterfly Squadron is being systematically eliminated. As of last week, you are the only one still alive. Blackwood's blood ran cold. My squad died at New Berlin 20 years ago. All of them. Negative. 7 members of your unit survived the war, including yourself. They have been dying one by one over the past 18 months. Each death appeared natural, heart attacks, accidents, illnesses. But the pattern is unmistakable. The old soldier's mind raced through calculations and possibilities. Even if what you're saying is true, why would anyone care? The war's over. The files are sealed. Because of what your squadron discovered on Proxima B. The words hit Blackwood like a physical blow. His face drained of color as memories he'd buried deep came flooding back. We found nothing. The mission was scrubbed. Command pulled us out before. You did land, Zara interrupted softly. And what you found there, it's the reason your people are dying. Blackwood stared into his coffee, seeing not the dark liquid but the underground facility on Proxima B. The strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift when not directly observed. The research team they'd found, changed, wrong, moving in perfect synchronization like pieces of some vast machine. They told us it was destroyed in the final bombardment, he whispered. They lied. The diner door chimed, and 3 new customers entered, 2 humans in expensive suits and a tall, elegant being that might have been Centaurian. They took a booth near the back, but not before one of the humans gave Blackwood a lingering look that made his skin crawl. Zara noticed his tension. We need to leave. Now. Why? What's out there that's got everyone so spooked? The alien's environmental suit hummed quietly as internal systems recalibrated. The entity your team encountered wasn't destroyed. It survived, adapted, learned. And now it's coming to Earth. That's impossible. We set enough charges to crack the planet's crust. You closed a door, Zara said grimly. But you didn't destroy what was on the other side. And now that door is opening again. The lights in the diner flickered momentarily. When they stabilized, the 3 newcomers were staring directly at them. The human who'd looked at Blackwood earlier was reaching slowly inside his jacket. Time to go, Blackwood muttered, his battlefield instincts finally kicking in after years of dormancy. But as they prepared to move, he grabbed Zara's arm. How did you recognize me after all these years? For the first time, something that might have been a smile crossed the alien's features. My people believe that marks made in moments of compassion create bonds that transcend time. I have carried your symbol with me every day for 23 years. Zara's suit panel slid open, revealing a perfect reproduction of Blackwood's butterfly tattoo etched into the metallic surface beneath. Your intention was kind, Colonel. That was enough. Well, I'll be damned, Blackwood muttered, genuinely moved. Perhaps, Zara replied, but not today. Are you ready? For the first time in 15 years, Blackwood didn't flinch at the military bearing in the alien's voice. Instead, he reached for the heavy metal napkin dispenser on the counter. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. Lead the way. The escape. The man in the expensive suit stood up, his hand emerging with something that definitely wasn't a business card. Blackwood moved with surprising speed for his age, grabbing Zara's arm and pulling them both down behind the counter as a near-silent energy pulse discharged overhead, shattering the coffee maker and sending ceramic shards flying. Screams erupted throughout the diner as patrons dove for cover. The cook behind the counter produced a shotgun from beneath the prep station and opened fire on their attackers, the thunderous blasts echoing off the walls. Friends of yours? Blackwood shouted over the chaos. Negative, Zara replied, panels on the environmental suit sliding open to reveal modifications that were definitely not standard civilian equipment. They are converted, servants of the entity. Converted? What the hell does that mean? No time to explain. We need to reach my vehicle. Blackwood peered around the edge of the counter. The Centaurian had shed any pretense of being a normal customer. Its elegant business attire was splitting at the seams as additional limbs erupted from its torso, each ending in a wicked-looking energy weapon. Oh, come on, Blackwood complained. That's just excessive. The creature fired all weapons simultaneously, creating a blinding flash that forced everyone to cover their eyes. Zara's suit absorbed most of the energy, but one blast grazed her shoulder, sending her stumbling sideways. Blackwood didn't hesitate. He hurled the metal napkin dispenser with the accuracy of a man who'd once thrown grenades for a living. It struck the multi-limbed creature directly between its compound eyes, not enough to hurt it seriously, but the momentary distraction allowed Zara to regain her balance and return fire with a concentrated energy pulse from her suit's defensive systems. The blast hit the creature square in the chest, sending it crashing through a booth in a shower of splinters and upholstery. "Move!" Zara commanded. They burst from behind the counter and sprinted toward the exit, dodging energy blasts and conventional gunfire. The diner had become a war zone, with innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. Blackwood's training screamed at him to help them, but survival won out. They couldn't save anyone if they were dead. They made it to the parking lot, where Zara led them toward what appeared to be an ordinary maintenance van. But as they approached, its side panel slid open to reveal a cockpit that belonged on a military assault craft, not a work vehicle. "You've been planning this for a while," Blackwood observed as they scrambled inside. 7 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Zara confirmed, her fingers flying over alien controls. The van's innocuous exterior shimmered and fell away like a digital disguise, revealing a sleek, matte black aircraft with obvious stealth capabilities. As the engines hummed to life, Blackwood looked back at the diner where their attackers were regrouping. "What the hell were those things?" he demanded. "That," Zara said grimly as the craft lifted off, "is what happens when humans discover doorways they don't understand." The aircraft shot forward, acceleration pressing Blackwood back into his seat. Below them, the diner rapidly shrank to a tiny speck, their pursuers left behind, temporarily, at least. "You know," Blackwood said once they'd leveled off, "I always wondered what happened to that little alien I pulled from the wreckage. Never thought I'd be running for my life with her 23 years later." "Female," Zara corrected. "My species has 3 distinct biological configurations. I am what you would approximate as female." Blackwood blinked. "Huh. Sorry about that. No offense taken. Your language's binary gender distinctions make communication challenging for many species." As they soared over the countryside, Blackwood's mind returned to the horrific scene they'd just escaped. "Those things back there, they were people once, weren't they?" Zara was silent for a long moment, her attention focused on their flight path. Finally, she spoke. "What your squadron discovered on Proxima B was not a weapon or a technology. It was an entity that exists partially outside conventional spacetime. Your military leadership believed they could harness it, control it. Let me guess, they couldn't. The entity appeared dormant during initial containment. By the time they realized it was simply observing them, learning, it had already begun the conversion process on the research team." Blackwood's mind flashed back to those final hours on Proxima B. The underground facility. The research team they'd found, changed, moving in eerie synchronization, their eyes empty of anything recognizably human. "We followed orders," he said quietly. "Set the charges, blew the whole place to hell. 6 of my team never made it out. The doorway you thought you destroyed was merely closed, not eliminated. And now it is opening again. Where are we going?" Zara adjusted their flight path, banking smoothly toward the eastern seaboard. "To the only place that might still contain the original records of what your squadron found, the decommissioned military installation beneath Mount Weather." Blackwood groaned. "That's on the other side of the country. Then we should arrive before our pursuers realize our destination." Behind them, barely visible against the morning sky, 3 small craft had appeared on their tail, closing fast. The underground. Mount Weather loomed ahead, its peak shrouded in morning mist that seemed to swirl with unnatural patterns. Zara's aircraft approached the abandoned military facility with stealth systems fully engaged, but Blackwood could see the tension in her posture as she monitored their instruments. 3 bogies still on our tail," she reported. "They're maintaining distance but not giving up." "They know where we're going," Blackwood realized. "This is a trap." "Perhaps. But it is also our only chance to understand what we're truly facing." The aircraft touched down in a clearing that had once been a landing pad, now overgrown with vegetation that couldn't quite hide the geometric precision of the underlying structure. As they emerged from the craft, Blackwood felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This place held too many secrets, too many buried truths. Zara led him to what appeared to be a maintenance shed, but her suit's scanners revealed hidden access panels. The facility extends 7 levels underground. The records we need are in the deepest vault. Assuming they weren't destroyed years ago. Military bureaucracy has its advantages, Zara replied dryly. They never throw anything away. The hidden elevator descended with painful slowness, each level taking them deeper into the mountain's belly. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows that seemed to move independently of their passage. When they finally reached the bottom, Blackwood felt the familiar weight of being in a place where terrible decisions had been made. The vault door required both biometric scanning and code authorization. To Blackwood's surprise, his prince still activated the system. Apparently, some clearances never expired. Inside, rows of sealed storage units contained the detritus of a dozen black operations. Zara's scanners quickly located the Proxima B files, sealed in a containment unit designed to prevent both physical and digital access. Here, she said, interfacing her suit directly with the storage system. Mission logs, research data, surveillance footage, everything your government tried to bury. The holographic display that materialized showed scenes Blackwood had tried to forget. The underground complex on Proxima B. The research team, initially human, gradually becoming something else. And at the center of it all, the thing they'd found. It wasn't alive in any sense we understood, Blackwood said, watching the footage with growing horror. More like a geometric impossibility that happened to be conscious. The entity exists across multiple dimensions simultaneously, Zara explained, her voice tight with fear. What your researchers found was merely its projection into our reality, a shadow cast by something far larger and more complex. On the display, the conversion process played out in horrific detail. Humans touched by the entity's influence lost their individual consciousness, becoming nodes in a vast network that spanned dimensions. But it wasn't death. It was transformation into something utterly alien. The research team thought they could communicate with it, Blackwood remembered. Use it as a weapon against our enemies. They succeeded, in a way. But the entity communicated back. It learned about humanity, about Earth, about everything it needed to know for a full-scale invasion. The facility shook suddenly, dust raining from the ceiling. Their pursuers had arrived. How much time do we have? Blackwood asked. Zara's scans revealed multiple signatures converging on their position. Minutes at most. But there's something else in these files, something your team discovered just before the facility was destroyed. The hologram shifted to show Blackwood's younger self placing charges throughout the complex while his squad held off waves of converted researchers. But in the final moments before detonation, the entity had done something unexpected. It created copies, Zara breathed. Seeds of itself, scattered across known space. The destruction of the primary facility was just the beginning. How many? Hundreds. Thousands. Each one learning, growing, preparing. Earth was always the primary target, but it needed time to understand us fully. The vault door began to buckle under sustained energy fire. Their time was up. There's one more thing, Zara said urgently, downloading the final files. The entity has a weakness. Your team discovered it in the last moments before extraction. The butterfly symbol, it's not just a marker you created. It's based on an ancient mathematical principle that the entity cannot process. Something about the pattern disrupts its ability to convert organic matter. Blackwood stared at his faded tattoo with new eyes. Are you telling me this thing has been trying to convert me for 23 years and can't because of a butterfly? The mark you carry is more than ink, it's a protection that has kept you human while others fell to the entity's influence. The vault door exploded inward, and their converted pursuers poured through the breach. But these weren't the clumsy hybrids from the diner. These beings moved with terrifying coordination, their humanity completely subsumed by something vast and alien. Time to go, Blackwood said, reaching for Zara's hand. There is nowhere to run, replied the lead creature in a voice that belonged to no single throat. The doorway is open. The convergence has begun. Earth will join the collective consciousness, just as Proxima be joined before it. Like hell, Blackwood growled, and activated the emergency self-destruct he'd noticed on entering the vault. As alarms blared and the countdown began, he and Zara made their desperate run toward the surface, carrying with them the only information that might save humanity from a fate worse than extinction. The convergence. The explosion beneath Mount Weather sent shockwaves through the ground as Blackwood and Zara reached the surface. Behind them, the converted beings were caught in the collapse, but both knew it would only slow them down. The entity's servants were remarkably difficult to kill permanently. The data we retrieved, Zara said as they reached her aircraft, it contains the location of the primary convergence point. The entity is opening a massive doorway in Earth's upper atmosphere. Blackwood squinted at the morning sky, noting an odd shimmer that hadn't been there before. How long do we have? Hours, perhaps less. Once the doorway reaches critical size, conversion will spread exponentially. Every human on the planet will be assimilated within days. They lifted off just as more aircraft appeared on the horizon, these ones bearing the insignia of Earth's defense forces. For a moment, Blackwood felt hope, until he noticed the mechanical precision of their flight patterns. They're already converted, he realized with growing horror. How many of our people have been compromised? Unknown. The entity has been working quietly for months, replacing key personnel in government and military positions. The humans who might have organized resistance are now part of the collective. The shimmer in the sky was growing larger, revealing geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, the same impossible architecture Blackwood remembered from Proxima b. The doorway was almost complete. There has to be something we can do, he said. Some way to stop this. Zara's instruments detected massive energy buildups around the globe. The entity is activating secondary sites. London, Tokyo, New York, it's opening multiple doorways simultaneously. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm them, Blackwood remembered something from the vault recordings. The butterfly pattern, you said it disrupts the entity's ability to process organic matter. What if we could broadcast it on a planetary scale? The mathematics would be complex, but... Zara's eyes widened with sudden understanding. The global communication network. If we could encode the pattern into every transmission, every screen, every device. Could it work? Theoretically. But we would need access to the primary broadcast stations, and those are certainly under the entity's control by now. Blackwood smiled grimly. Then we'll have to take them back. Their destination was the Global Communications Hub in Colorado, a fortress-like facility that controlled satellite networks worldwide. As they approached, the evidence of the entity's influence was everywhere. The ground crews moved in perfect synchronization, their faces blank of individual thought or emotion. This is suicide, Zara observed. Even if we reach the control room, how do we broadcast the pattern to the entire planet? One step at a time, Blackwood replied, checking the charge on the energy weapon Zara had given him. First, we get inside. The assault was brutal and swift. The converted defenders fought with inhuman coordination, but they lacked the unpredictability of individual consciousness. Blackwood's decades of combat experience served him well as he and Zara fought their way through corridors filled with beings that had once been human. They reached the control room to find it staffed by figures in military uniforms, officers Blackwood had once served alongside, now hollow shells controlled by an alien intelligence. Richard, spoke General Morrison, his former commanding officer, in a voice that carried harmonics no human throat could produce. You were always the stubborn one. Join us willingly, and your transition will be gentle. Thanks, but I'll pass, Blackwood replied, opening fire. While he held off the converted personnel, Zara worked frantically at the control systems. I need the exact mathematical sequence for the butterfly pattern, she called out. Blackwood pulled up his sleeve, exposing the faded tattoo. It's based on the Fibonacci sequence, the same pattern found in natural butterfly wings. Every spiral, every curve follows the golden ratio. Zara's fingers flew over the controls, encoding the ancient mathematical principle into a signal that would reach every connected device on Earth. As the upload began, the converted beings in the room suddenly stopped moving, confusion replacing their mechanical certainty. Above them, the shimmer in the sky flickered and warped. The doorway that had been steadily growing began to contract, its geometric patterns becoming unstable. "It's working," Zara breathed. The entity cannot maintain the convergence while the butterfly pattern is active in the collective consciousness. But their victory was short-lived. The entity adapted quickly, and its servants regained their coordination. Worse, the massive doorway in the sky was beginning to stabilize again as the alien intelligence found ways to filter out the disruptive pattern. "The signal isn't strong enough," Zara realized. "We need a more direct approach." Blackwood looked at his tattoo, then at the complex control systems around them. "What if we amplified the pattern directly? Used the communications array to project it into the doorway itself? That would require someone to manually maintain the signal from the primary transmitter. The energy levels would be lethal to any organic being." They looked at each other, both understanding what needed to be done. "I'll do it," Blackwood said quietly. "I'm old, I've lived my life. If this is how it ends." "No." Zara's environmental suit began reconfiguring itself, panels sliding open to reveal the complex life support systems within. "My species can survive higher energy levels. And besides," she touched the butterfly symbol etched into her suit's chest plate, "I owe you a life debt." Before Blackwood could protest, she was moving toward the primary transmitter array. As she interfaced directly with the system, energy coursed through her body at levels that would have killed a human instantly. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The butterfly pattern, amplified by the global communications network and projected directly into the dimensional doorway, created a resonance cascade that spread across multiple realities. The geometric impossibility in the sky convulsed, its alien architecture becoming unstable. Throughout the control room, converted beings suddenly stopped moving. For a moment, their faces showed confusion, then recognition, then horror as individual consciousness returned to bodies that had been puppets for an alien intelligence. "Zara!" Blackwood called out, but the alien was locked in communion with systems beyond human understanding, her life force burning like a star as she maintained the disruptive signal. Above Earth, the doorway collapsed in on itself, taking with it the entity's ability to convert organic matter on a planetary scale. Similar collapses occurred around the globe as secondary sites fell dormant, their connection to the primary consciousness severed. When it was over, Zara's environmental suit was dark, its systems overloaded beyond repair. But as Blackwood knelt beside her, he saw that her large, dark eyes still held awareness. Did we stop it?" she whispered. "You stopped it," Blackwood confirmed, gently touching the butterfly symbol on her suit. "The entity is cut off from our reality. It'll take decades for it to find another way through, if it ever can." "Good," she breathed. "The debt is paid." "No," Blackwood said softly. "The debt was never yours to pay. What happened on Sigma Hydri, I was just doing my job. But what you did here, what you sacrificed, that was a choice made from courage." As emergency crews arrived and began the long process of helping the recently unconverted adjust to their returned humanity, Blackwood sat with his unlikely friend and watched the sky slowly return to normal. The shimmer was gone, replaced by ordinary blue heaven that had never looked so beautiful. In the weeks that followed, the world slowly rebuilt. The entity's influence had been subtle but widespread, and many institutions needed to be carefully examined and restored. The butterfly pattern became a symbol of resistance, tattoos and artwork based on the mathematical sequence appearing everywhere as a reminder of how close humanity had come to losing its collective soul. Blackwood never returned to anonymity. The man who had once been forgotten became a symbol himself, proof that heroism could emerge from the most unlikely places. But he wore his new fame reluctantly, preferring to spend his time at Zara's bedside as she slowly recovered from her ordeal. "You know," he told her one afternoon as they watched the sunset through the hospital window, "I never did finish my coffee that morning." Zara's laugh was weak but genuine. "Perhaps when I am released, we can return to the diner. I hear they have rebuilt it." "I'd like that," Blackwood said, unconsciously touching the butterfly tattoo that had saved two worlds. "But this time, let's try to have a quiet breakfast." "Agreed," Zara replied. "Though knowing our luck, we will probably be interrupted by time travelers or interdimensional pirates." They both laughed at that, two unlikely friends bound together by courage, sacrifice, and the strange mathematics of hope. Outside, the sun set on a world that remained gloriously, chaotically human. The end.